Hi, y'all. Anchors away. This is our Navy broadcast today. And as you can see, I'm wearing my CV shirt and my Navy hat. In 1973, June of 1973, I graduated from high school. And after that, I enlisted in the Navy. Now, my parents had to sign for me to go in the Navy. And I remember that my recruiter sent me to Fairmont, West Virginia, put me up in a motel overnight. And I loved that. I was on my own for my induction into the Navy and take the oath of office and all that stuff. So I went the next morning, went to the AP station, Armed Forces Recruiting Station, and enlistment station, and I raised my right hand and took the oath. I signed my enlistment papers, signed my contract, and I was good to go. So I went in under a program called 4x10, and that means I would spend 4 to 10 months on active duty for training, and it was a special program back then. And so a few weeks later, my mom was doing laundry there in the Philippines. She took me with her to help with the laundry, and I went. And she told me something. She said, I want you to promise me something right now. I want you to promise me that when you go in the Navy and afterwards, you will never get a tattoo. Well, I promised, and to this day, I've kept my promise, never got a tattoo. It came time for me to go to San Diego, California to boot camp. Now, I had never flown in my entire life, and I, like a lot of other people, was scared to death of flying because I didn't know what to expect. As I told you before, I didn't like rides. So I went to Clarksburg, the Benedum Airport in Bridgeport, not Clarksburg, which Bridgeport's right next to Clarksburg. Okay, so the plane came in. I said bye to my parents, took my little bag, got on this plane. It was a small little commuter plane that was going to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I got on there, put on my seatbelt, looked out the window, and closed my eyes as hard as I could shut them. I felt the engines revving up, and I felt us going down the runway. I had my eyes shut. I felt a lift, and then I opened my eyes and looked out the window, and we were in the air. And I fell in love. I fell in love at that moment with flying. Well, we got to Pittsburgh. I learned how to change planes. I changed planes to a bigger plane going to Chicago, O'Hare. Once got to O'Hare, I had to change planes again for a flight to San Diego. Got that flight, got to San Diego, and I'll be darned, there was a bus waiting for all of us recruits right there to take us to the Recruit Training Center in San Diego, California, the RTC. Well, I got on that bus. We got on the base in San Diego, and the first thing they did was they told us how it was going to be. They ain't my mama, they ain't my papa, but they're going to be in charge of me, and I'm going to do as I'm told, follow orders, and all that stuff. So we got our haircuts. I mean, they buzzed me down to nothing. I was bald, a bald eagle. Then they gave us our clothes, our dungarees. And those of you that were in the service, you know what a dungaree is. It's a pair of blue jeans and a blue shirt and a cap. So I started recruit training, started in boot camp. It was going to be a 7-week boot camp. And I went through that, and halfway through it, I got pneumonia. Of all things in the world, I got pneumonia. Ended up in the hospital. You know what? In the Navy, you go to the hospital they make you work. You don't just sit around and wait for the nurses to help you and stuff. You go to work. They had me going to work with pneumonia, mopping and sweeping the floors, sweeping the deck, as they call it. Well, my company commander, who was a master chief, he was an E9, as high as you could get in the enlisted ranks, he got me out of the hospital, and I didn't get set back. In other words, I didn't get put back to day one of my training. I got to go back to my company 213, and retrain with my company, go with my company through training. And you know, back then, they had, I'd just gotten out of pneumonia. They had some cigarettes at the commissary called lemon twist, menthol lemon twist cigarettes. Bought me some of those, and out of the hospital and getting better from pneumonia, I was smoking these cigarettes. Now, they would tell us the smoking lamp is lit. That means wherever you were, you go ahead and smoke. Then I bummed a cigarette because I was out from a guy next to me. He gave me a Marlboro Red. Man, that thing made me sicker than a dog. And I hated Marlboro Reds ever since. So, got out of boot camp, graduated from boot camp. Oh, let me tell you, while I was in boot camp, I got to call home a couple of times. I'd call home in the evening, and I didn't realize the time zone difference. My parents would be in bed. It'd be midnight. But they would answer the phone, and I would be begging them, get me out of here. I want out of this. Well, they couldn't get me out. We went to chapel. The chaplain said, don't even ask me to get you out because you ain't going nowhere. That's what he said to all us recruits that went to church. So I graduated from boot camp, and from there I went to Port Hueneme, California. I was going to be a CV, Construction Battalion, equipment operator. They sent me to ELA school, which was going to teach me for 12 weeks how to be an equipment operator. Went there, and I was happy as could be because I had a actual room, not an open bay barracks, an actual room with another guy. So in my room, I went to the commissary, had to pick my pay, and bought me a little stereo, listened to Marty Robbins singing White Sport Coat, sent my parents a stereo, and I would have to do my own laundry. So I'd take my laundry to the laundromat, and I would be doing my laundry, and all of a sudden I was hearing this song, and this song was Smoke on the Water, I think by Deep Purple. And so there I was, washing my clothes to Deep Purple, you know. And so I really enjoyed A school. I'd get on a bulldozer and they'd say, just make you a path down that way and dig a trench about 2 inches deep. And there I'd go, digging my trench. And after A school, they sent me to Gulfport, Mississippi for 3 weeks of military training. Now, in the CBs, you learn how to do your job, and you also learn how to fight. One of their mottos is, we build, we fight. So they sent me there, went to the open bay barracks. Well, they weren't really open bay. There were 4 guys to a cubicle. And in that barracks, it was the weirdest thing. They had beer machines. That's right, they had beer machines where you could buy beer out of the machines. Now, let me back up a minute. In boot camp, when I graduated from boot camp, they gave us liberty. They gave us time off. So a bunch of us went to a bar. Now, I had never had a drink of anything my entire life. They started ordering pitchers of beer. Well, I grabbed me one of those pitchers, grabbed a glass, put some beer in it, drank some beer, and thought, well, this ain't bad. So I drank almost a whole pitcher. let me tell you, within 30 minutes of doing that, I was a sick puppy. I mean, they had us, we didn't have the Cracker Jack uniforms. They were trying something different. They gave us a combination hat and a suit and tie for our enlisted dress uniform. So I took that combination cap and me into the bathroom, and I mean, I puked in that cap. Oh man, I must puked all my guts up in there, and I said, I'll never, ever do this again. Okay, going back to Gulfport, Mississippi. Well, I did it again, but I didn't get sick like that. And so they were training us to fight. So I learned how to fire a machine gun, an M60 machine gun. Got to do that. That was so much fun. And they had a rocket launcher. Yeah, I got to fire a rocket launcher, the one you put on your shoulder, and they tap you on the head, and that's when you fire it. Kaboom! You know, I fired that thing at a tank way, way, way out yonder. And I didn't hit the tank, but I hit some dirt, let me tell you. And then we went out and we were on a overnight camp. I got to be the forward observer. That means that I had the privilege of going out in front of everybody else, finding a bush and sitting there looking at it, nothing, overnight, with a M16 rifle, which is the same as an AR-15, just a little bit more advanced. And I did that. So then, when my time was going close, it was time for me to get out of active duty for training and go and drill with a reserve unit. Now let me explain something here. Yes, I'm a veteran, but I don't get any VA benefits whatsoever. Why not? Because my DD 214 separation from active duty papers say that my active duty, which was 6 months and 1 day, was for active duty for training. If it's active duty for training, that doesn't count and you don't get benefits. But you're still obligated to serve for 6 years. And if you don't meet your obligation, they'll take you out of the reserves and throw you in active duty. So I decided I want to go to San Antonio, Texas. Now, my dad didn't want me to go to San Antonio, Texas. He wanted me back in Philippines. Well, he'd gotten a check from somewhere for me, and I called home, told him I was going to San Antonio to live with my grandparents. He told me if I did that, I wouldn't get my check. Well, I did that anyway. Went to San Antonio, and he did send me, excuse me, my check. I went to the local reserve center, affiliated, and once a month I would have to go to a reserve meeting on the weekends and get paid for that. Had my uniforms and all that. Went to live with my grandparents there in San Antonio, Granny and Dan Dan. And I also had to get a job. So I found me a job at the Gross National Bank in San Antonio as a check sorter. And that was when you took a machine, you put all the checks from the day in it, and it sorted them by account number. The guys there, I was part-time, the guys there, I worked at night, the guys that were there, the computer operators, they were always teasing me. They'd take rubber bands and shoot rubber bands at me and stuff, and I didn't like that at all. But I made about, $70, $80 every week or so. Lived with my grandparents, went to Harlandale Baptist Church with them, and every year I would have to go for 2 weeks of training. And this was a lot of fun, because when I was in the Navy, I got to go to Gulfport, do some training, got to go to Dallas, Texas, do some training and play on the equipment. You know, I could play all I wanted to. Sometimes the fleet sailors, the ones that went on boats that weren't CBs, well, they made friends with me, and my commanding officer, you know, was a CB, and they were going to take the fleet sailors from San Antonio to Long Beach, California to do some work over the weekend on a minesweeper. Hey, they took me along, and I got there, and gosh, I'd never been on a boat. And so I was on this minesweeper with nothing to do for 2 days. Me and this other guy that went, we decided we're going to go out in Long Beach, and we're going to go to a massage parlor. Yeah, you heard me right. We're going to go to a massage parlor. We went to the massage parlor and did all that. And the guy came out and said, "Hey, did anything happen with you?" I said, "Did anything happen with you?" He said, "No." I said, "Me neither. They just rubbed my shoulders a little bit, and that was it for $60." And so that was that. And then another time, they took me to California, to Big Bear, and we were doing some work there, and they made me the battalion dispatcher. And that was a heck of a lot of fun. I remember at night, the trees, those pine trees, the sun, the moon being out, and you could hear the wind whispering through those pine trees. And then, one time, I got to go to Hawaii. That's right, I got to go to the Big Island with some Seabees. Now, they didn't have any jobs for an equipment operator, but they were going to a military resort on the Big Island where they got the volcanoes and everything. At the Kilauea volcano, they had this military resort for retired people and active people and all that. And they were redoing a building. And they taught me how to do copper pipe. And they also taught me how to sheetrock. And I got pretty good at that sheetrocking, let me tell you. When we were off on the Big Island, we went to see the volcano and went to see the volcano flows and all that. Now, the volcano you heard about a few years ago that erupted used to be you could go through a little rainforest, go down to a crater, walk over to that crater where the volcano was, and it was smoking, and you could see the yellow from the sulfur and all that. And on the edge of that, I'll never forget, they had beads, they had cigarettes, they had booze and everything else. Now, this from the locals paying homage to the god Pele that lived in this crater. And I was going to grab some of that, and the guy next to me was real superstitious. He said, "Oh, no, don't do that." So I never did that. Well, then, when our time was up, they paid us, and we went to Honolulu. We flew to Honolulu, and we got us a hotel, put our money in the safe, and one night we went to a bar where the ladies didn't like to keep their clothes on, and the beer was $10 a beer. Then we went to a restaurant, a fish restaurant. Man, that was great. And then we went to another place, another restaurant, and bar type of deal, where they had guitars from Elvis and cars up on the ceilings and everything else. And I'll let you guess where this was. It's a really popular place. So then when it was time to come home, we got in the plane, and this one guy was scared. He was scared to fly. He wanted to go to sleep, so he took some pills to calm him down and everything, offered me some. Heck no, I don't want none of those. I love to fly. And we flew back. I'd been in the reserves a total of maybe 16 times. I drilled in San Antonio, Midland, Odessa, and also in Lubbock. And I enjoyed every minute of it. In Lubbock, they used to have the reserve center on 4th Street, but they tore that street up and made a loop out of it called the Marshall Sharp Freeway. So now they built a brand new reserve center that I've never been in. But I'm proud of my time in the Seabees. And even though I don't to this day get VA benefits, I have experiences and memories from that time that are absolutely wonderful. I am proud to say that I served in the United States Navy. In fact, one time in Long Beach, when I was going to A school, I got to march in a parade, and that was a thrill too. I've had so many experiences. You know, I've flown in a C-131, got to go to the cockpit and watch the pilots pilot the plane at night, you know, and it was just an adventure. So I had so many adventures. Now, in 1977, I was working at a bank in Odessa, Texas, the old American bank, as a computer operator. And how I did this was, let me back up. When I was living with my grandparents in San Antonio, drilling in San Antonio, aside from work, my grandfather put me through business college at the Paris Strong's Business College. Went through that, learned how to do key punch. For those of you that are younger, you can look it up, Google it, what key punch is. Went to work for a bank in Odessa, got to be a computer operator, where the computer was an entire floor in the basement. And that's where I met my first wife. And we met in the bathroom at 3 o'clock in the morning because she was in housekeeping. It scared us both half to death when we saw each other. And so later on, I'll tell you about my marriage to Carol. But all through these years, I was in and out of the Navy. I'd get discharged honorably and then re-up, go back in, wait a few years, re-up again. And I did this for several years up until, I think, 1995, somewhere in there. So this is my adventures with the Navy. I've been to 29 Palms, California at a Marine base. And when I was drilling in Lubbock, we went to the Reese Air Force Base, which is closed now, went there for lunch. I want to tell you something. Navy chow is good, but Air Force chow, man, you can't beat that with a stick. The worst I had was out in the field with the Marines. But I've also, out in the field in Gulfport, I had C rations, K rations, and all this other stuff. And to show you how old this was, back then in the C rations, they give you a pack of cigarettes that had 5 cigarettes in them, and a can of dog food that you would eat, and maybe a cracker and a cookie. They were all in cans. But anyway, this scale, I'm going to let y'all go for now. We're going to have another adventure tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to doing episode 7 with y'all. And if y'all get a chance, check me out on YouTube under Gail Sharp and follow me. And I would really appreciate it. I hope a bunch of you get to see these because I'm really excited about telling you my life story and a bunch of stories that happened to me in life. Till next time, I want to say aloha, goodbye, and God bless each one of you richly. Bye-bye now.